They call this the Lacey Trellis Granny Square, which is kind of funny because it's not that lacy, and unless you're planning to grow cucumbers on it, not much of a trellis either. But it is one of the easiest ways to make a granny square look like it hit the glow up filter. Which do you prefer? Solid, cozy granny squares or airy open ones? Drop your vote in the comments. I need to know who's team cozy and who's team breezy. Hey crochet friends, I'm Mo, your crochet companion. First up, I'll walk you through the Lacey Trellis Granny Square. Then, if you stick around, we'll head straight into the next chapter of Stella Stitchwell's Mystery Saga, because apparently yarn isn't dramatic enough without sabotage. Okay, once again, I have decided to use the Hobby brand yarn. It is a sport weight, so if you decide to join me with the sport weight, you'll want to use a 4mm hook. You can also use a solid worsted weight, in which you would want to use like an H hook, or I think it's a 5mm. Yeah, 5mm hook. You can use multiple colors, or you can use a solid color. I'll kind of show you a little bit of both in a little bit. But first, let's get started. I'm going to start with the pink, and we're going to start by doing a magic ring. Those of you who have not done a magic ring before, I do have a couple tutorials out there for you, but I'll go over it again. So I always like to have my yarn, my end piece toward me. We're going to go up and over, making sure you cross over. I grab my end piece there, kind of drop it, pull that piece of yarn back up here, and then since this one has a double crochet as its foundation row, I'm going to go ahead and do a stacking stitch. So it is a single crochet. Let me go a little bit closer. We're going to do a single crochet, then in that vertical bar we're going to do a second single crochet. That's why it's called a stacking stitch. I'm going to pull that just a little bit because I don't like my magic circle being floppy. So for this one, we are actually going to do a series of 3 double crochets, chain 3, 3 double crochets. So we're going to have a total of 4 of those. So there's 1. So we got 3 double crochets. Then we're going to chain 3. We're going to do another 3 double crochets. And there's 3, chain of 3, 1, 2, 3. And 1, 2, 3. And if you're just now joining me in this series, I'm actually doing a whole series, just 6 episodes, where I'm using a different granny square and pairing it with a mystery. So if you missed the first episode, that's okay. Go ahead and go back and watch that one. And I'm actually a little bit more detailed about the magic circle in that one as well. So, all right, so we're going to end this on a chain of 3, and we're slip stitching in that first part of the stacking stitch, right there at the top. All right, congratulations. You just crocheted a tiny square donut. A tiny square donut, right? I'm going to snug that up just a little bit because I don't like my hole to be quite so big. All right, so a lot of people do this a little bit differently. Some people, they will snip their yarn and start in the corner, and some people will start with just like one of the DCs in the corner squares. I do it a little bit different. I actually will slip stitch in each of these first 2 stitches, and then get over here into the corner, slip stitch in the corner, and then I will do a stacking stitch. So that's going to count as your first double crochet. And then I'm going to just do 2 more double crochets, chain 3, 3 double crochets in that same corner. And like I said, you can actually stick with the same color if you want to, or you can switch up the colors. We are not doing a chain of anything in between each corner. We're just going to keep going, doing 3 double crochets. 1, 2, 3 chains, and another 3 double crochets. Now, I don't like to assume that people automatically know at this point that they have already acquired the double crochet and chains, but if you have not, I would recommend checking out my beginner videos that I have out there so that you know how to do those. I shouldn't assume, but I do, because at this point, when you're getting to the grannies, yeah, they're still considered beginner friendly, but most people don't start with a granny. All right, 1, 2, and well, maybe 3, and no chain at that point. And we're going to do that last corner, and then we're going to go to round 3. I don't know why I keep getting myself out of the frame there. There's 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. One, 2, and 3, and then we're going to do a slip stitch in that first stacking stitch that we did. There we go. And at this point, you can either choose to snip your yarn or keep going in the same color. It does not matter to me. If you do decide to go in the same color, you're just going to do a slip stitch in those first 2 stitches and a slip stitch in that corner space, and do it just like I showed you in this round. But for me, I'm going to go ahead and switch colors. I'm switching to the blue. We're going to grab a corner space. It doesn't matter, any corner space. And this is where the trellis part comes in. So we basically do a normal granny square start, and then we start in with the trellis. So we're going to do another stacking stitch in that corner. That's going to count as your first double crochet. Now this row, we're just going to do 2 double crochets. So that first stacking stitch counts as 1, and then we're going to do a chain of 3, another 2 double crochets. Okay, now this is where the fun comes in. At least I like to think of it as the fun, right? It's basically, you got to take a deep breath, and we're going to open up this row, okay? So instead of going into a space or doing any chains or anything like that, we are actually going to go into the space in between each of these stitches and do a single double crochet, basically a one double crochet. So here we go. And each of these spaces, you're going to do 1 double crochet, no chains in between, just a straight double crochet. This is the part that gives it that lattice feel. And as you can see, I'm going to start crocheting over my tails. That's how I secure my loops, or my ends there. Yeah. Apparently I cannot talk and crochet at the same time because I say random stuff that doesn't even make sense, right? All right, back to the corner. We're going to do 2 double crochets, chain of 3, 2 double crochets. And then we just keep going just like that. We're going to do a double crochet in each of those spaces. Each of those spaces. Until we get to that corner. And then once we get to that corner, we're going to go back to the 2 double crochets, chain 3, 2 double crochets. One and 2. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and finish this row and I'll be right back to you. Okay, we made it to the end of the row and look at that. We're going to do a slip stitch in that top stitch of the stacking stitch. Let's look at our work so far. You still with me? Perfect, because now it starts to look less like random crochet math and more like the world's fanciest waffle, right? Okay, let's go ahead and get started on round 4. So we're just going to do a slip stitch in that next stitch, a slip stitch in the corner. We're going to do a stacking stitch. This row is very much like the last row we just did. We're going to do the 2 double crochets in the corner, chain of 3. You can do a chain of 2 if you want to, but I like the chain of 3. And then the 2 double crochets, that's in the corner. And then we're going to do a repeat. We're going to do 1 double crochet in between each of those spaces. Not in the stitch itself, in the space itself. No chains in between each of those double crochets, just a straight stitch. And then we get to our corner again, and we're going to do the double crochet, chain 3 or chain 2, whichever your preference is. That's completely up to you. And then we're going to do the chain 2, or excuse me, 2 double crochets, chain 3, 2 double crochets. And we're just going to repeat that until we get to the end of the row. Okay, we made it to the end of row, I believe this is 4. We're going to do our our slip stitch in that top single crochet of our stacking stitch. And at this point, I'm actually going to switch my colors. You do not have to. You can do just like we did with the slip stitch in there. This is actually a really great pattern for color changes because they pop beautifully with this pattern since the dense rows and open rows show yarn differently. All right, so we're going to go in our corner with our new color. I'm just going to do our stacking stitch. And this time we're going to do 3 double crochets in the corner. 3 double crochets, chain 3, 3 double crochets. One, 2, and 3. Now this is the part that gets a little tricky, so we actually do need to count. We're going to be skipping stitches. So we're going to skip 1, 2, and in the third one, we're going to do 3 double crochets. No chains in between these. And we're going to do that again. We're going to skip 3, 1, 2, 3. Another 3 double crochets in the next stitch. 1, 2, 3. 3 double crochets in that stitch. This is what gives it that variable texture, and that's also the reason why I changed colors at this row, because it just accentuates the change, right? And it pronounces the trellis. So now 1, 2, 3, and we're going to do 3 double crochets, chain 3, and 3 double crochets in that corner space. So that's pretty much the gist of the trellis stitch. The Lacey trellis. I'm going to kind of walk you through just a little bit here. So you're actually going to repeat rows 3, 4, and 5 until you get to the size that you want. So as you can see from my example here, so I did 2 rows in the pink, and then I did a trellis and a trellis, 2 rows of trellis, and then back to the regular granny, and then another 2 row of the trellis, right? So that's why it got the name trellis, because it does kind of look like a trellis. So you just keep repeating 3, 4, and 5 until you get to the desired size that you want. That's the beauty about this pattern, is that you can just keep going over and over and over again until you could probably make a whole afghan out of this. That's how wonderful this stitch is. Now I'm going to show you a solid color. So this is what the solid color looks like, and it's beautiful, but if you look at the difference between the two, it just doesn't quite, it's okay. It just is kind of blah comparison to the color switching. It just really makes that trellis pronounced. Kind of cool though, right? All right, so, and that's your Lacey Trellis Granny Square. Sturdy, stylish, secretly way easier than it looks. Until next time, don't frog under pressure, and happy crocheting. And if you're sticking around for the saga, last time Stella found 3 suspicious sun stitch markers. Today, our so-called Lacey Trellis manages to catch more than just stitches. When we last left off, Stella had 3 little stitch markers pinned to my corkboard, each grinning like it knew our secrets, each scratched on the back with the same number, 4. Next to them, a stitch counter sat at 16, with the stubbornness of a garden gnome, and our suspect list was written in handwriting that could take fingerprints. Also, there was a freezer on the list, specifically Linda's freezer. A normal person would let a freezer be a freezer. Stella wrote freezer and underlined it 3 times like it had asked her for rent. That's the mood I woke up to. Toast in one hand, phone in the other, and a text barrage titled Urgent Visual Evidence. Stella sent me 6 photos of yarn cakes, vacuum sealed and stacked in plastic tubs like Arctic sushi. Then a voice message. It squeaks when it thaws, solemn as if reporting from a nature documentary. Guilt has a texture. So when she arrived for craft day, I was already braced. The cork board from episode 1 was propped against the wall like a witness who'd taken an oath. I had planned a calm session with a lace-edge square, the kind of delicate piece you block gently and then immediately shield from gravy. Stella marched in with her yarn bag, a thermos labeled "Not Tea," which was definitely tea wearing bravado, and the purposeful stride of someone who has prepared 3 speeches and refuses to leave without giving all of them. She didn't bother with hello. She pointed at the corkboard. Updates? She announced, and the room had to adjust. I have 3 alibis, she said, ticking them off like she was calling roll. Marcy was at Pilates, time-stamped Instagram, glittery leggings. Todd was live streaming a 10-nation crochet marathon, witnessed by 73 people and his cat. Lila was, buying another freezer, suspicious, but on brand. So the freezer stays, I said. The freezer never leaves, she intoned and underlined freezer again with her eyes. She settled at the table. I set out my gentle, airy lace. Stella pulled a soft cream skein from her bag and started humming something that suspiciously resembled the Law and Order theme. She said she would help keep watch. I said I preferred to crochet without surveillance. She said, of course, and then continued to survey. 10 minutes in, the kettle whistled. I'll pour, I said, because giving Stella a task can lower the conspiracy temperature. I came back with 2 mugs, set one beside her, and found her frozen. Not freezer frozen, theory frozen. The kind where your eyes go flat because your brain has turned into a courtroom. Please tell me, she said, voice steady in the way that means the opposite, that you hired a magician. Not on a Wednesday, I said. She reached into her bag and pulled out a length of cream yarn. It dangled, cleanly cut, and ended in the air. She reached in again. Another length. Another. Another. She laid them out on the table like she was dealing cards in a tense movie. Each piece lay neatly end to end. 1 yard, she said. She measured against her arm span like a tailor-fitting doom. Exactly 1 yard. I leaned over. I've been known to exaggerate for comedic effect, but I swear to you, it was surgical. A perfect parade of 1 yard lengths. Clean scissor ends, no fray, no chew, no dramatic snap, just tidy little endings. The way a villain might tie off loose ends and then alphabetize them. Maybe the skein came this way, I tried. Stella's eyes narrowed to detective slits. This is weaponized symmetry. She picked up 1 piece and held it against another, comparing notes. 1 yard. Every single piece. She looked at me. This is the saboteur. I gave her my best, sure, and the toaster is an accomplice face. She ignored it. She began sorting the yard pieces into rows. Cream links together, a stray neon squiggle off to the side, a suspicious sparkle strand she swore she didn't own. Every so often she paused to sniff a piece. Citrus, she pronounced, foreign, which in Stella speak means not my soap. Then she stopped. 2 of the yard pieces were tied together with a tiny, tight knot, not her usual joint. It was precise and strangely delicate. She lifted it to the light, turned it, and made a sound I've heard her make only in yarn shops when she finds a limited edition dye lot. Found something, she whispered. If you're new here, Stella's joining methods have names and sometimes alibis. If the fiber allows, she prefers a spit splice, which she has renamed Moisture Mediated Bond, because she's decided marketing is her destiny. For acrylics, she uses a magic knot or a careful sewn join. This knot was none of these. It was intentional in a way that felt staged. She pulled out tweezers from a small case labeled Forensic, which is not a joke prop. She owns those. She teased her knot apart slowly. It loosened, sighed, and released. A tiny rolled scrap of paper, smaller than a fingernail. The kind of thing you get when a sticky note loses weight. We both exhaled. She unfolded it with tweezers. Inside, in microscopic neat pencil, chain 3, DC, chain 1 times 4, slip stitch, round 4. And beneath that, even smaller, R16C4. Stella's eyes went glossy the way people look at fireworks. They're speaking in stitches, she breathed. Our language. It's literally a row instruction, I said. Round 4, chain 3, double crochet, chain 1, 4 times, slip stitch. Exactly, she said, as if I'd cracked an ancient ruin. But no one hides ordinary instructions in a knot. The row note is the candy coating. The core is this. She tapped R16C4. Row 16, column 4. Round 16, corner 4, or... Her voice pitched up to conspiratorial heaven. Aisle 16, booth 4 at the expo. I suggested it might be spreadsheet coordinates from someone who organizes their stash like a librarian. She was already rearranging the corkboard, which is Stella's favorite verb. Now the board had 3 sun markers pinned like small medals, the original yarn wrapper clue, the brighter it shines, the closer you are, the stitch counter glaring 16, 3 suspects, freezer scowling in permanent marker, and the new micro paper under a header she wrote with flamboyance. Speaks in stitch. There's no jokes in lace, she declared when I asked if this might be an elaborate prank. Only thread, mercy, and math. Strong words for someone who once crocheted a banana koozie. That was public service, she said. She decided to test the enemy's materials, which is to say, she chose chaos. She took one of the yard lengths, made a slip knot, and started chaining. 3 chains in, the yarn ended. She tied a tiny join, 5 stitches, end, knot, 4 stitches, end, knot. By the 3rd join, she sounded like a tennis player. Join, knot, join, knot. It was determined, ridiculous choreography. Stitch, breathe, knot, mutter. I kept working on my serene lace square. Hers began to resemble something made by a patient ghost, delicate but interrupted. She worked through it with stubborn elegance, hiding her knots carefully, setting the tension so the joins lay flat. And somewhere in the chaos, something pretty peeked through. 10 minutes later, she had a lacy little square that looked like a saint's hanky, if the saint had trust issues. It's mocking me with its prettiness, she said, suspicious. It's lovely, I said, because it was. The joins were almost invisible. The pattern had rhythm that made the interruptions feel intentional, like rest in music. Don't at me. I know we're not doing music metaphors. I'm just saying it breathed. Her phone buzzed. Group chat. Linda, Got a second freezer, half price, dream come true. A selfie with the new chest freezer, grin wide, thumbs up, and caption with 6 snowflake emojis. I had questions about her power bill. I just did not ask. 2 freezers is intent, Stella muttered. 2 freezers is stew, I offered. 2 freezers is climate control, she countered and pointed at the corkboard bubble labeled frosted yarn with a little sketch of a snowflake. Remember the ice bloom clue? Damp yarn freezer sensation? Linda is the Arctic. I considered defending Linda's right to cold peas and popsicles, decided to save that energy for seatbelts later. Stella smoothed her lace on the table, palm flat, and both leaned in like jurors. The piece caught the light, glimmed a little, and for a second felt like the room had inhaled. I was about to say, "See, it's fine," when something winked at me from the edge. A glint, gold, tiny, a sun stitch marker dangling from the lace's fringe, smiling up like it had been there the whole time and was only just now choosing to speak. We didn't breathe. Stella didn't touch it. She angled the lace gently. The sun swung, chimed against her hook. I could feel my eyebrows trying to climb away. "I didn't," she began. "I know," I said. "Did you?" "I did not plant celestial bodies in your lace." She lifted it with the tweezers, flipped it with care. Back scratched. 4, of course. We added it to the board. 4 suns in a row, identical smiles, identical scratches. The rhythm of it changed the room somehow. 3 had felt like pattern. 4 felt like a plan. Stella sat down slowly. She looked at the lace with the kind of personal insult, then at the board like it owed her rent. When she spoke, her voice was softer than I had expected. "It's in the joins," she said. "They planted it before the knot. Or it appeared when the lace closed. Or it might have been looped on one of the yarn pieces," I offered. "We didn't examine every inch before you started." She shook her head once, not dramatic, certain. "I would have noticed." She sat with that. The kettle hummed to itself and clicked off. Somewhere down the block a dog barked, then thought better of it. The corkboard watched us with its little pinned eyes. "Okay," I said, shifting us back to land. "We stick to the plan. Craft night at Linda's. 3 alibis you promised me. In person. Calmly." I held up a hand as she opened her mouth. No accusing anyone on camera. No naming anyone as a freezer until we know why she bought a second freezer. I paused. "Besides, sale." Stella pinched the bridge of her nose, then let her hand fall, and the theater lights returned to her eyes. "We set a trap," she said. "We bring lace bait. We bring the GoPro." "The GoPro beeps," I said. "It is not known for stealth." "We put it under a tea cozy," she said, as if that solved physics. "And the cozy looks like I swallowed a robot." "New product prototype," she said. "Camera cozy. Limited edition." "That's not a thing." "If we say it is thing," she said, and texted her cousin Gary, "bring fishing line. Also small bells. Don't ask." "We are not booby trapping Linda's living room," I said. "I like being invited back." "Not booby trapping," she said primly. "Booby informing. Subtle. Elegant. Lace forward." I gave her the look I reserve for days I end up Googling how to remove glitter from a ceiling fan. We'll do a gentle version, I said. GoPro in a cozy, lens peeking through like a shy hedgehog. A spare phone set to time-lapse. And we tell Linda we're testing filming angles. Because we are. Stella exhaled. Compromise. She clicked the stitch counter absent-mindedly. 1, 2, 3. And I smacked her hand lightly. No, 16 is our weird number. Don't anger it. She grinned. Superstition looks good on you. It's not superstition, it's narrative consistency. I said to the camera that wasn't recording out of habit. The camera and I have a relationship. Mostly I talk and it records and occasionally makes my pores look like they were renting out rooms. We took a break to eat cookies shaped like yarn balls. Thank you, Lila, whose chaos contains multitudes. And while we chewed, Stella pulled out her suspect dossier like a magician choosing cards. Marcy, she said, flipping to a photo of a woman with perfect eyeliner and the posture of a music teacher. Tension like piano wire. Motif. Once called my teal assertive. To be fair, that teal was loud, I said. Art has voice, she said. Todd. She flipped to a screen of a man midstream, eyes slightly wild in the light of 6 ring lamps. Weaves in ends at speeds that make physics tired. Motive. Envy. You just complimented him and then accused him. Complexity, she said. Linda. She pulled out a photo of Linda hugging her new freezer like a pageant winner with a prize ham. Motive. Unknown means abundant. Maybe she stocks emergency casseroles, I said. Maybe she fosters penguins. Maybe she bulk buys popsicles for charity. Stella tapped the picture, then the freezer bubble, then the R16C4 scrap. She drew a little dot line between them on the corkboard because if a theory doesn't have a string, does it even exist? Everything points to the expo, she said. Aisle 16, booth 4. The stage lights. The brighter it shines, the closer you are. And now lace. Lace is delicate under stage light. It either glows or disappears. You're saying the saboteur is sending you on a tour of lighting design? I said. I'm saying they want an audience, she said. And they want me rattled before I get there. Today, cut yarn. Tomorrow, what? Vanishing centers, moving markers? Her mouth flattened. Not on my watch. To change the subject before she listed crimes against yarn, I asked about Todd's cat. Oh, Pickles, she said, momentarily off guard. Pickles knocked over an entire cone of cotton on camera. Todd called it an intervention. He says he's going to mount the cone like a trophy. Put him on the corkboard, I said. She did, between Marcy and Linda. Captioned, Pickles, Chaos, in the kind of affectionate scrawl that makes you forgive a cat you've never met. We returned to the lace sample. She turned it over, checked every join. Tell me I'm not imagining it, she said. The join feels tighter now than they were. I took the piece and ran my fingers along the line of knots. They were snug, yes, but the knots are like people. Sometimes they settle differently after you stop fussing. I think you're feeling your own meticulousness. That's slander, she said. She laid the lace down again, reached for the stitch counter, then stopped herself with a visible effort, which I appreciated, and tapped the R16C4 scrap instead. We need a map, she said. Printed aisles, booth numbers. We will get a map, I agreed. We will not accuse the information desk of conspiracy. She squinted at the suns. 4, she murmured. 4 suns, not counting down, not counting up, just Present. The number 4 means something to them, I said. To you? To me, she said. It means corners. Granny squares have 4 corners. Corners are where things turn. We sat quietly while that landed. Then she snapped out of it because there is only so long Stella can be quiet without alarming herself. All right, she said briskly. Checklist for craft night, decoy lace project with suspiciously neat joins, GoPro in a tea cozy, spare phone on the time lapse near the yarn bowl, casual questions for 3 alibis, and no UV flashlight, I said. She sighed. I'll leave it in the car. I held out my pinky. On your honor as a crocheter? She hooked my pinky into hers. On my honor as a crocheter, she said, and as someone who is deeply familiar with building codes. She is not, but I let her have that. We tidied. She tucked the lace into a clear sleeve like it might try to bolt. I put my serene square on the blocking mat like a little garden fence. The corkboard leaned, full of options. The 4 sons stared with permanent cheer, which, in context, now felt like a threat wearing a smile. Before she left, her phone pinged again. Group chat. Marcy, bring that teal tonight. I want to see in real life, suspicious, supportive. Todd. Pickles says hi. Photo of a cat blending perfectly into a pile of white cotton. Only eyes visible. Linda, got ice cream for everyone tonight. Followed by 15 snowflakes and a penguin. See, I said, ice cream, freezers, normal. Or a cover, Stella said automatically, but she was smiling a little. The kind of smile that means she's gearing up for something and also maybe has accepted that penguins are not in Linda's basement. She slung her bag over her shoulder, paused, turned, looked into the camera. To the saboteur, she said, and her voice did that thing where it's both a dare and a promise. If you think lace is fragile, you haven't met me. She left. Gentle door, civilized latch, which is how I know the monologue is moving inside her head now, not exploding in my living room. The room settled. I looked at the lace. I looked at the suns. I looked at the little paper with the R16C4 like it might blink. I tidied for a minute to keep my hands busy because I am a person who thinks in straight edges. As I slid the tea cozy closer to the GoPro to check fit, yes, it will look like a hat ate a camera. No, I don't care. A thought occurred. If the saboteur could get into Stella's bag, and our window, and my tripod bag, our craft night decoy would be like leaving cookies out for a raccoon and then pretending to be surprised by raccoons. Which is to say, I think we're going to catch movement, or at least glitter. I pinned the 4th sun onto the board beside its siblings, 4 in a neat row. The stitch counter stayed at 16 like it was waiting for applause. I picked up the tiny paper, traced the letter with a thumb. R 1 6 C 4. Like maybe muscle memory could solve it. It didn't, but it comforted my neurons. Then, because the universe enjoys timing, a soft clink came from the shelf. I didn't jump. I was proud of myself. I turned slowly. It was just a key ring settling after the door. Or so I told my nervous system. Stella poked her head back in. Forgot my tweezers. Grabbed the case labeled forensic and slipped out again. Softer than a stitch through chain space. That's our cue. Next stop, craft night at Linda's. A corkboard, 3 alibis, a freezer I did not know a person could love, and a tea cozy with secrets. Also, ice cream. Probably. possibly labeled evidence by the end of the night. If you're still here after the tutorial, bless you and your attention span. If you are the saboteur, we see your sunshine. Bring your brightest. We'll be closer.